Well, it is wonderful to be here tonight. Thank you, Cynthia, for all the work you did to organize this. To be here on the land, which is the traditional land of the Ohlone people. And I really love this tradition of naming the land that we stand on and the original peoples of that land, because I think it helps remind us that there is another world besides the world of our current political denominations and ideas and stuff that is much older and in many, many ways much more grounded and much wiser. I also feel like it's great to be in this particular place because this room itself is a room where I have spent many happy hours of my youth in long political meetings and spokes councils and trainings, and it has been a place where activists have gathered for so many years. And I see some faces out there. How many of you go back to the old Diablo Canyon organizing days? And Livermore Action Group, and the Vandenberg Action Coalition. And I think that heritage of activism is something that's important for us to also claim and to pass on to the youth. The question of the night is sort of, what do we do now? And I think that's a question that, like everybody, I've been wrestling with certainly since the last shocking election-like thing that happened. Because, I know so many of you that have been involved in activism as long as I have, decades and decades of it, and suddenly it seemed like we were on a rocky roller coaster, but somewhat positive trajectory, and suddenly it went like, what? And now what? I think that there's some very important things that we need to do, but I do see a lot of elders in this room, and I think one thing we need to do as elders is to know that we have an important place in the movement, and that younger people need us. They need our history, they need our experience. They may not always recognize that they need us. And most of us who are elders of my age, we come out of a generation that didn't say we must respect and learn from our elders. We came out of a generation that said, don't trust anyone over 30, right? So maybe it's a bit self-serving now that suddenly say, well, actually, we need to learn from our elders. But, being self-serving never really stopped anyone from advocating for some political change. So I'm not going to let it stop me. And I will say, I had the great privilege this year of going to Standing Rock, just for a very, very short time. But for me, going there at my age, it was a very powerful experience to be in a culture that really honored and celebrated elders. And I think most of us don't realize the constant sort of low-level grinding away at your sense of esteem and value of living in a culture that doesn't respect age, that doesn't respect experience, that erases all of that, just as it erases the lives and experiences of people of color, of women, of non-traditionally gendered people, of everything else. So I think one thing we can do is to honor and respect that experience for ourselves, and to realize again that it does have a value in the movement. Young people need to know what we know, which is that movements come and go, and they have ups and downs, and they have shifts, and that some of those moments when things seem the bleakest are sometimes the moments right before it changes. And that those moments where everything seems so incredibly exciting and wonderful and it's all going to shift and the revolution is happening now, don't usually last forever. So you got to take advantage of them when they come, and you've got to work with them when they come. I think the other thing we need to do now meditating on this after the election, I feel like I really got the message that we need to build a movement that is three things. That is welcoming. And honestly, I think the movement is not doing a great job at that. I think too much of it takes place on the internet, on Facebook. Too much of it is about people telling each other how wrong they are for using the wrong word or the wrong framing or the wrong phrasing. And I don't believe it feels like a newcomer coming into the movement has that feeling that I think a lot of us got at Diablo or Livermore of like, these are my people. These are the people that are going to have my back in this struggle. And these are the people who are going to actually support my deepest longing, which is to be an agent of justice in this unjust world. So I'd like to call for a moratorium on a couple of things. One is policing each other's language. I mean, there's some language that really just should never be used, but, how about we just stop, even for a month, like going on Facebook and saying like, oh no, don't use that word, just stop and see what happens. See if people's lives actually are that oppressed, and see what kind of energy we might have for actually taking action instead and doing things. Because we just heard this wonderful spectrum of things we could be doing right here and now in the Bay Area. And I'll tell you, people say language is important. Well, it is. It's important, but it's not all that important. Action is more important. Because when you take action, I learned this from my stepdaughter, who is an environmental artist and just got her PhD, and she was telling me about the whole theory of cognitive dissonance, about climate change. That basically, if you talk about climate change and you don't do anything about it, on a deep psychological level, you're telling yourself it's not important. If you do something about it, it doesn't matter so much what you say about it, you are conveying the message that it is important. So let's see what we can do to actually make people's lives better, to actually promote policies that are going to help people, to actually get resources that are going to help people. And I think if we do that, the language about it is going to emerge. And if it doesn't, then a month from now you can go back to going on Facebook and telling everybody how wrong they are. I think we need a moratorium on conspiracy theories. I don't even care if they're true or not true. How about, again, just for, let's say, between now and Samhain, we stop worrying about them, talking about them, because I'll tell you, if there's one thing everybody in the United States believes, it's that some mysterious cabal of people are secretly controlling everything and we can't really do anything about it or know who they are. Some of us believe it from the left, some from the right, but that's a really disempowering thing to believe. So why don't we just put it aside? I'm not saying don't believe in it if it's your pet theory or whatever. Suspend disbelief and see what energy gets freed up to do something else. And finally, I'd love to see a little moratorium on vitriol. It's like a poisonous energy, and I really believe, in the run-up to the elections, it's sort of like on an energetic, witchy level, the amount of vitriol poured over the world, from the right and the left, that feeds Trump and everybody connected. It's like he's some sort of vampire that, like a dementor that sucks on that particular energy. So what if we just stop that? Just for a season and see what happens. If we do that, then I think we can start to look at social change and say, hey, a movement is like an ecosystem. It has many niches to fill. I mean, we just heard this beautiful array of things going on right here in the Bay Area. We get in these fruitless arguments about my tactics are better than your tactics, or my method is braver than your method. We need people marching in the streets, and we need Code Pink, shutting down banks and disrupting Congress and all those wonderful things. And we need people filing lawsuits. And we need people writing, letters to their Congress people and calling them up and showing up at city council meetings and staging, street theater and all of those things. And we need to be more strategic, not in saying, don't do that, do what I do, but saying, like, how does what you do and how I do, how do they work together? How can they support each other? Just like if you plant something in your garden that fixes nitrogen, it can help support something else. I teach a lot of permaculture, so I tend to be like immersed in a lot of gardening metaphors. To be strategic also means we need to think about how best to use our energy and what aspect of the movement needs to particularly happen at any given time. So we have this tremendous opportunity right now to be growing and broadening a movement, to be bringing in people who have never been politically active before. And I think that is something that we should be thinking about and focusing on, because in order to take these actions, we need to have movements that are not just the stalwart ones of us in this room, many of you who've been to every demonstration since 1968. Right? I've often thought, like, if I'd made myself a laminated sign in 1965 that said, "Stop the bombing," I could just keep bringing it out every 5 or 10 years. We need those people, but we need to be right now broadening the movement so the movement becomes not just the edge species, but the actual mainstream. And we need to do that quickly, because we are in a state of environmental and social collapse. And the environmental collapse and climate change is galloping ahead faster than anyone expected it to. Finally, we need to think about how we frame those issues. So when I think about climate change from a permaculture perspective, I think about it not just as a matter of carbon numbers or even as a matter of technology, but as a matter of massive ecosystem breakdown on a global scale. And that ecosystem includes social and economic and political systems. And that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're living through. The good news is that we actually know how to repair ecosystems on a large scale. And the ways that we can do it do not require carving up little children and serving them for dinner, or all of us standing in line in gray uniforms for the rest of our lives waiting for a crust of bread. There actually are nice things. We need to build soil. We need to do what nature's been doing for hundreds of millions of years, of learn how to be effective at using plants to take carbon out of the atmosphere, which is what plants do. Build plant bodies, things like trees, and woody perennials and perennial systems. Grow food in ways that does that, and build living soil, which is full of humus, and humus is soil organic carbon that comes out of the atmosphere and gets stored in the soil and improves the fertility, improves the water holding capacity, improves everything about it. We need to localize. We've been saying this for decades. We need to come back to community. We need our enterprises and our food growing systems and the things that we do to be rooted in community, so we don't have to be shipping everything hundreds and thousands of miles around the world all the time. And we need to build community, because it is community that actually gives us the heart and the connection and the strength to withstand these times. And we need to learn from the experiences of ourselves and of others. And for that reason, I am really thrilled to be here tonight with Ahmed Salah. I met him some years ago when he first came to the Bay Area, and was amazed to hear his stories of the Cairo uprising and the Arab Spring. And his book, which is over there, You're Under Arrest for Masterminding the Egyptian Revolution, which is what the police said to him when they arrested him, I think it's a must-read for anybody who's interested in the question of how do social movements actually work, what can we learn from other people's experiences, how do we organize in really, really extremely difficult situations, and what do we learn from our successes, and also what do we learn from our failures. So I want to not ramble on too long, because we're running late tonight, and I want to make sure that you get some time to hear what he has to say. And I don't know if this will be possible, but we're really hoping to have a little discussion afterwards and have some time for that too. So I want to just close. I just want to read you one little passage. This is from City of Refuge, which is the sequel to The Fifth Sacred Thing, the novel that I wrote a long time ago about times of change and challenge. And for those of you who know the characters in the novel, this is kind of like Maya's last words. For my part, if I could, I would declare a general amnesty for all of us everywhere. Forgive our debts and our mistakes, our missteps and failings and betrayals, even our occasional or devoted cruelties. All the ways we play out our inner torment on one another. We are wounded creatures, all of us, bashing away with bloody limbs. We never had a chance to be anything else. Forgive it all and start anew. Let us forgive all the ways we wander in circles, take the wrong path. We all lose the way. Let it go and know that all you have to do really is just to come back. Stand up again when you fall. When you can't see ahead, grope your way back to the trail. That's all we ask, all we can ask. Not perfection, but course correction. Not a symphony, but a few notes pulled from the air and shaped into something with meaning. A song, however simple, even if you forget the words and flub the harmony, even if you think it makes no difference. Just sing. Be on the side of the makers and shapers, the singers and the storytellers. That's all you need to do. Not to sing with the voice of an angel, but however cracked and broken your instrument, sing anyway. Yeah.